are doing a theme for a lot of our programming this semester on being a good neighbor. And that's drawn largely from the parable of the Good Samaritan and thinking about here in Madison, the different divisions across our city and our society, and how, and really just asking the question, how does Jesus's ethic of loving your neighbor, as told through the parable of the Good Samaritan, how should that affect us here? And you don't need to answer that particular version of the question, but I wonder, as a historian of labor, as a historian of religion, do you have any insight on this, on what, I would even guess, if you were to ask a labor leader in 1910 and a social gospel theologian in 1910, what is the meaning of the Good Samaritan parable? I imagine they'd have different, though probably similar, but maybe significantly different answers in how that is actually applied in Christian ethical living. But I wonder, from a historian's perspective, who's studied a lot of class division, a lot of people who actually are neighbors but don't like each other, I assume, in the historical record. What do you make of the parable of the Good Samaritan from the perspective of labor history?
Oh, that's such a great question. So maybe I'll take this in a slightly personal way. So the book is dedicated to InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. I was part of IVCF for 14 or 15 years, and I still see that community as wonderful, and the sort of people who helped me ask these questions, taught me to ask these questions about the late 19th century. And in some ways, my critique of the churches, the bright Protestant churches of the early 20th century, comes out of some of my experience in ministry for all those years. And what I found is that after a while, we sometimes went back and forth between inviting people who didn't know about the teachings of Jesus into a good conversation on the teachings of Jesus and on what he was asking us to think about, and inviting people into an institution so that people could be another member of that institution. Right. And I would say that this challenge, this sort of thing we kept running into in the early 2000s is still a thing. It's also a thing that people ran into in the late 19th century, when working class Christians were sitting in a spot in American culture where they could easily see, maybe even better than some wealthier people, that when people talked about the teachings of Jesus, they weren't necessarily just talking about the teachings of Jesus. They were talking about being part of a particular social club and living in authority under that social club. And I would say that working people of the late 19th century would point out that sometimes there really is a difference between the teachings of Jesus in the Gospels, the teachings of seeing others and loving others really as you love yourself or your family. That sort of central message of Christianity, and the message of being a member of a large institution that exerts power in the country. And I would say that is one legacy of these people that I tried to bring to light in this book. That it's important to not lose track of the extent to which the institutional church has its own political goals once it is a big and powerful institution.